welcome to the Good Girl Confessional. I am your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional is proudly brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Today in the podcast, I am so excited to be talking to Sally Hepworth, the New York Times best-selling author of 7 books, but her latest book is incredible. It is called The Younger Wife, and it's a beautifully written account of one family who is just steeped in secrets. It's so great. Sally is Melbourne-based. She lives in Melbourne with her hubby and her 3 children, and she is a full-time author and writer. She is quite an incredible person, and I'm super excited to speak with her. Welcome to the Confessional, Sally Hepworth. Hello, and welcome to the Confessional. Sally, how are you?
I'm great. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's brilliant to have you here again. And my confession today is that we did have a chat in the confessional a little while ago, and the technology didn't work, so we're back again. So I'm really excited to be able to chat again.
Yeah, I wish everything had a second round. This is great. Editing.
It's really exciting, and we're both based in Melbourne, and I think last time we were chatting it was just really terrible weather, and then here we are, and it's, you know, a 30-degree day and looking like thunderstorms. Crazy.
I know. I'll take it though. I'm loving the warmer weather.
Yeah, it's nice. It really is nice, and hopefully we get a little bit more of it on the lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. I'm so excited to chat with you because you, very, very clever woman, you have written your latest book called The Younger Wife, which I loved, by the way. It is
Thank you.
fantastic. I hadn't finished reading it last time we spoke. Now I have. Full of twists and turns. It is so amazing. Absolutely love, love, love it. So
Oh,
tell us all about The Younger Wife, because I love the inspiration that set you off to write this book. It's brilliant.
yeah. Well, funnily enough, this book started with a hot water bottle of all things. And I think it won't be until you read it that you will understand that. But uh, it was a couple of years ago that the hot water bottle presented itself. And it was started with a phone call from my great auntie Gwen. And she had been taken to hospital, and she rang me and said, I'm in the hospital. Would you be able to go and get my hot water bottle from home? And I thought that's a kind of weird thing to ask for, right? What do you need that for? And her house was a little bit out of the way, so I said, why don't I grab a hot water bottle from here, or I can buy one and I'll bring it to the hospital. And she said, no, I need that hot water bottle. And it's in my house in the spare room behind a chest of drawers under a pile of newspapers. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. I said, why do you need it? And she kind of wouldn't give me the full story. And so I went to her house. I tracked down the hot water bottle. I looked inside and it was full of cash. And I mean, a lot of cash. And my great auntie Gwen is a woman of modest means. You know, she's not the type that has lots of cash lying around. And I thought, wow, this is so interesting. And before I'd figured out what was in there, my writer's brain had already gone to a million other places. Like, what is she hiding in there? Is it a weapon? You know, is it body parts of, someone that she has murdered? What is it? And as it turned out, it was cash, and it had come from, um, fear of banks and a distrust of banks, and also a win on the pokey machines, and that was why it was in there. But it was too late. My writer's brain had started thinking about a hot water bottle full of cash, what that could mean, and how that might start a bit of a mystery in a family. And so all of that sort of came together to make The Younger Wife, which is a book about an adult family, a mother, father, 2 adult daughters, and then the woman who the father figure decides that he wants to marry, and she is about the age of his adult daughters. And this story takes you, as you said, there's lots of twists and turns to it, but part of the mystery starts to unravel when a hot water bottle is discovered, and the onion kind of peels back from there.
It's just genius. And I love that, this one interesting and unusual experience in your life turns into this amazing story that you have created. Like, I love your imagination is mind blowing. What I love about the characters is that they're all so fully formed. These are like truly 3D kind of people. You believe them to be real as you're reading it. How does that come about? Like, where does the inspiration for those beautiful characters come from?
I don't know. I think that people are endlessly interesting to me, especially contradictions within people. And no one is ever completely, one thing or another. I was just talking to my dad earlier about my little one, Clementine, who is a really gentle, sweet, lovely little girl, but she's also feisty. She has this temper. Even Indiana Jones is so brave, but he's afraid of snakes. And for me, those kind of contradictions about a person are what make them interesting. It's what I like about my friends, and I think part of what my friends like about me. And so when I create a character, I really look for that third dimension, not just creating someone that's nice and that's it. What else is going on with them? And so that's what I tried to do with this book. You know, I also have a little bit of a love for the neurotic character. I think it won't surprise any readers of my books to know I've got a fair bit of neuroses going on in here, and that tends to come out in my characters too.
I love that though, but that's what makes you such a great writer. And but I think that's what's really interesting, those sort of neurotic characters. And you write so many different in all of your books, all of the characters they've been really different, but you're right, that sort of neurotic character, you can tell though that there's a genuine, I guess, warmth for that character that comes out, and clearly, as you say, that's because you're fond of them.
I hope so. I hope people get warmth from the characters. Every now and then, I hear someone say, "Oh, I hated that character," or about any of my books, not this one in particular. And I always think, oh, because I know they're flawed, but I think as the writer, you have to feel an affection for any character that you're going to spend that much time with. So I love it when people, like them too.
Oh, it's fantastic. And look, I've got to say, and I don't want to give too much away because I really want everyone to rush out and buy The Younger Wife and read it because it's so great. But I think, one of the daughters, Rachel, is my favourite character. I was really, really drawn to
Yeah.
her. I just think she's fabulous.
Thank you. A lot of people have loved Rachel, and she was a joy to create for sure.
Yeah, I like it. But what I really liked about this book as well, it's very easy to see that title and say, oh, The Younger Wife. Okay, dad marries somebody much younger, and of course, chaos ensues. But it's actually
Yeah.
not that, like, the book takes you in a very different direction than you imagine it's going to as a reader. It's very clever.
I'm glad that you said that too, because I hate cliche. And in fact, the other piece that made up this book, or the piece of inspiration, was the fact that now at my age, I'm 41, and I have got a couple of friends who have had their father or their father-in-law, there's two, who have married a much younger woman. And, in each case, either their age or younger than them. And what has been interesting about that has been not the division that it's created in the family, but how much each one of my friends and the wider family have struggled to incorporate that person into their life, and how they have fought for the family and leaned into the family. People are kind of hardwired to want to protect that family unit and to struggle to make it work despite the fact that it's difficult and it's awkward, and sometimes even that desperation to make something work can create problems. So that's what I wanted to explore, a family that loved their family and wanted to stick together, as opposed to the family that were angry and desperate to destroy the family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what struck me about that was you could see the love for these adult children that they had for their father and really wanting to make this work.
Yeah.
But it's a really unusual set of circumstances, and I don't want to give
Mm-hmm.
too much away because there's lots of plot twists. But it is a really, I loved the way though that you treated the wife, the new wife coming in,
Yeah,
the younger wife, and her character development, because it'd be very easy to see her as just some
the
young,
villain.
right, the villain who she's a gold digger, she's this or she's that. But what's happened in this book is that you've beautifully given us such a beautiful insight into her as well.
Thank you. I love to turn that on its head again, as I've said. Similar to the mother-in-law, when I wrote that book, everyone has got such a cliche image of an evil mother-in-law, and everyone can conjure up an image of an evil younger wife, as you said, a gold digger. But is anyone truly evil? You know, why do people act the way they do? Why do they make the decisions that they do? And for me, that's way more interesting to explore that than to just write someone off as evil.
I loved it, and and it really challenged myself as a reader to kind of think, oh, how would I cope in those circumstances, and what would happen? It's quite an
Yeah.
interesting set of circumstances, and I love that it was really told from the perspective of different characters, but really that it was an adult family, as you said. So the children are grown ups; these are not young children. So this is not some evil stepmother who's come in. It's a really interesting journey.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you think so. For me, families are just where all the juiciest stories are. So, yeah, I hope that others agree.
I think it's true. No family is without its complexities, that's for sure. I wanted to
Correct.
chat with you. This is super exciting for me to ask you this, but you're a New York Times best-selling author, which in and of itself as an Aussie author is epically brilliant. So well done you.
Thank you.
But you had a massive billboard in Times Square in the US. How did that feel?
I know that was amazing. And it was also something that was completely unexpected. It wasn't part of a publicity campaign. My publisher didn't pay for it. It was one that was selected by Amazon, were the company that put it up, and they just select a book on merit, or their editors pick a book, and that is the one that goes up. And so it was completely, yeah, a surprise. So by the time I heard about it, it was already up. And it was one that, again, it was exciting that it was on merit as opposed to something that, my publisher had paid for. So, yeah, I mean, certainly it's in my top, few moments of exciting things that have happened to me.
Oh, and so many exciting things have happened for you because of your writing career, which was amazing. One of the most exciting, I guess, or one of many exciting things, is that you've been in contact with Amy Poehler, who is
Yeah,
actually a huge fan of your work.
I know. Isn't that amazing? That's definitely another one of those moments.
So, how did that come
Yeah, so
about?
well, she was given a copy of the book. So I have a literary agent, and then there's also a film agent. So I'm not the one that makes that happen. I submit the book, and then they have the book, and then they will kind of send it round to scout for TV and film options, or people that might be interested. So the first I heard of it was by my agent, who said that she'd read it and she wanted a phone call with me, which was, I mean, unbelievable. I had a really kind of surreal phone call with her that was at 6 a.m. I was in my car in my dressing gown. And my car was parked in the garage, which I did because I didn't want my kids to kind of come in and interrupt me at 6 a.m., which they would have done. Uh, and we had a funny phone call where my agent had said to me before, don't blurt anything out, Sally, because I'm a blurter. Just let her woo you. And I said, yep, got it. I can do that. And then we were on the call, and then there was that ping that someone else was joining the call. And she said, hey, it's Amy. And I said, oh, Amy, it's Sally. I'm such a big fan of yours, before anything else, before anyone else could speak. And then she said, oh, Sally, I'm such a fan of yours. And so
Oh,
it was okay.
that's like
And then
mind
we
blowing.
I know. Well, she was being kind and sweet and generous. which was nice. And she was just as lovely and funny, and she's exactly the person that you see on TV. And then Matt was amazingly, I was lucky enough to meet her in person a couple of months after that when I was in the States for Good Morning America. And then my agent then said, would you like to come back to LA and have breakfast with her on the way home? And I said, well, let me think about this. Yes, I do.
I'll see if
And
I can squeeze her in. Oh.
yeah, I know, which was just equally amazing. And all those things I said, she's just as nice as you can imagine. And
That's beautiful.
it was wonderful. And a few months after that, she optioned, or maybe a few weeks after that, they optioned the book, and they've been working on scripts and things. And COVID slowed it all down, but we get updates every few months, and hopefully things will take off again now.
And we should mention which book it is, because people will be waiting.
It's for the mother-in-law, and yeah, she was really wonderful enough to kind of understand the nuance behind that book, and she's so passionate about telling women's stories and creating roles in Hollywood for women of all ages. And to have Paper Kite, which is Amy's production company behind it, which is all female run, it just was such a good fit for my book. And so yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Oh, it's so epic. And I love that she and women like Reese Witherspoon are actually creating production companies that are really starting to option the stories told by women for women. And I think so powerful.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. But she is obviously, Amy Poehler is an incredible champion for women and wanting other women to rise. So, and young girls. And I think, wow, to be in her hands must be an incredible experience to have your words. I wanted to ask, we have chatted about this before, but I want everyone to hear it, that how does it feel as a writer when you create something and you put it out into the world? So it's like a baby, right? You put it out into the world and you set her free and see what happens. And someone like Amy Poehler comes along and says, hey, I want to, option this, which means they can interpret your writing in any way they see fit. How does that feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. And I know that there are some writers who probably have a bit more creative integrity than me that will say they don't like it. They don't want anyone messing with their characters. But for me, it's the opposite. I feel like, someone with the talent and experience of Amy Poehler, or other of my books have been optioned, and, the companies that have taken them on have such wonderful experience. They have screenwriters. I'm not a screenwriter. I kind of feel excited by the fact that they might make it better. They'll bring their wealth and experience and skills to making it better and making me look good. So if there was a conflict, I have been able to be a executive producer, as it were. So I do have a say if they were going to do something that really went against my feeling. I'm not especially precious. There have been only a few things that I've really kind of put my foot down on. And yeah, I think I'm really excited to see how that is going to proceed, and no fears at all.
I think it's fascinating too, because as an Australian writer, this will no doubt, be produced as, an American show or through a US lens. And
Yeah.
we've seen that done successfully with, Big Little Lies, when Reese Witherspoon has done it. How does it make, because there's always two sides of that, where people will say, no, it was meant to be an Australian story. But how do you feel about it being through a US lens?
I feel fine about it. I know that possibly makes me sound a bit un-Australian. For me and for my books, it's not that I want them to be in the US. It's that the setting, I don't really care. I think that my stories are very universal. They're stories about women and families and, drama and dysfunctionality. And I feel like one of the great things about that, families, that it really does transcend place. you go to anywhere in the world and you'll find a woman who wants to bitch about her mother-in-law, or, you know, her new stepmother, or, you know, what it may be. I think that's part of the reason that Big Little Lies, it didn't affect it for it to be set over in the States. For example, if it was a book like The Dry by Jane Harper, different story. I think that that is so much about the Australian landscape and Australia. Of course, it had to be filmed here. But with my books, I don't feel that. I do know there is one of my books, The Family Next Door, that's been optioned by an Australian production company, will no doubt, if it comes to fruition, be filmed here. And I think that will be an amazing experience for it to be here. But I'm not bothered by it being filmed anywhere. As long, for me, it's about the characters. If they get the characters right, if they get the feeling, you know, of what I was trying to portray, that's much more important to me.
Oh, for sure. And I think having, you know, read a number of your books now that I agree with you. I think they're such universal stories. It really wouldn't matter whether it was in Australia or the UK or the US or wherever. It's going to be amazing for sure. One of the things that's really will be interesting for you, I suppose, is to see who they cast in those roles, because I imagine as a writer, I mean, I'm a writer myself, but not an author, that you must you have a visual of what you think they look like, right? So that will be fascinating.
Yes, and I often am asked, who would you cast if you for this particular book? And I struggle with that because in my mind, as you say, I know what they look like, but they look like ordinary people. They don't look like a Hollywood movie star. And so it's often really hard to kind of, I could come up with someone, but it doesn't feel exactly right for me, because, you know, I know what they look like and that's not it. But then again, casting is so clever that sometimes, you know, even when I've read a book, someone else's book, and I think I know what they look like, and then I see it on the screen and I think, no, they got it right. That's what that person looks like. So I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing if it's made, what the people, the professionals think that they look like.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know, so my son, who is now 21, but when he was much younger, I remember when the Hunger Games came out, he loved the books. He loved the series of books. And this has always stayed in my head that, you know, we went to see it when it launched as a film, and we walked out and he was so grumpy, and he's like, that is not what Katniss looked like. It wasn't her. And in his young mind had such a definite idea about how she looked and what she was going to be. I just thought that was so fascinating that people fall in love so much with certain characters, that
that is fascinating.
Yeah, and especially for it to be a young boy as well.
I know. Well, I think I probably had an idea, particularly with the Hunger Games. I knew what Katniss looked like, but as soon as I saw it on the screen, all of a sudden she was Jennifer Lawrence, you know. And I
Right?
think that's probably and that is true. I think it's been quite rare that I've seen something and thought, no, that was badly cast. And so maybe it is about our personalities, you know, specifically, as opposed to you know, bad casting in many cases.
No,
But
I
who
agree.
knows?
I agree. I mean, I don't think I've ever really watched something and said, oh, I can't believe they cast that person. You know what I mean? Like, actors embody
Yeah.
characters, I suppose, and we go along for the ride.
Yeah, on the whole, I think. But yeah, I'll watch that a bit more closely now.
So you've done so much. Like, how long does it take to write each book? Because it's been a steady, and I need everyone to understand this as well. Your writing career, we're not talking like, you know, 30-year career or anything here. It's quite staggering how many books you've written really over a short period of time. Best-selling books, by the way. Tell us about the writing process and how long it takes.
Yeah, well, it takes me about a year, and I should make it clear I write full time. This is my job, and you know, you can't compare yourself if talking to the listeners here, if they're writing a book on the side and also, you know, caring for children full time or working full time. But for me, a year is about right, and it's probably 3 months of first draft, you know, that writing process, about 3 months of editing, and then the other 6 months are a combination of just running the business that is, you know, being a writer, touring, publicity, all that, you know, admin, all of those other things. that you do. And I'm on an interesting cycle where write a book a year, and I'm always a year ahead. And so at any given moment, I'm working on one draft. I might be doing copy edits for the book that I wrote the year before, and I might be promoting another book which has just come out. So you have to wear a lot of hats and remember which book you're talking about. um, and yeah, but look, I'm in the swing of it, and for me, a year is about the right time. That's how long it takes, and I enjoy the different parts of it. I think if I was just sitting there writing a book all the time, I'd get really bored of that. But you get to do a lot of different things when you're a writer, but also you're a business owner, in essentially running the business of being a writer. Um, yeah, I love it. It's a full-time job. There's absolutely no doubt. At a book a year, it's a full-time job, every one of those 40 hours a week and the rest. But it's one I love, and I wouldn't do anything else.
And this is what some people may not understand. When people are full-time writers, when you're a full-time author, that it is a business. I think people just think, oh, you just whack out a book and it's all glamorous and that's it, and you just swan around or whatever you do. I don't know. But there is this kind of weird comprehension. But writing a book is intensive. Promoting yourself as a business is full-time, as you said. And
Yeah.
you are the mother of 3 kids. And
Yeah.
yeah, wow. And so tell us how you balance all of that, because it's it's the ongoing thing for many, many women of working full time, juggling kids, trying to have some sort of life balance. How does it work for you?
Yeah, I don't balance it really. I just try and do one thing at a time, and then I ignore everything else in my life. But I don't believe in balance. I actually think that balance is something that has become a bit of a stick that we need to beat ourselves with, that, oh, I didn't balance, I didn't exercise today, I didn't spend enough time with my children, I didn't write, enough words. For me, I can't be all of those things in one day. Some days I'm a really good writer. The next day I might be a really good mother. The next day I might have some me time. Balance looks different to everyone. The other thing that's important to mention is that my husband is a full-time parent. He is the carer of our children. He is we have kind of quite 1950s roles, except it's in the
In
reverse. So
reverse.
I'm
Yep.
so he's the mum and I'm the dad. He does all of the household things, the cooking, the looking after the kids, the keeping on top of their schedules, and I do the work. And that is something that works really well for us. And yeah, I think it would be really hard to do what I do if I didn't have that physical and emotional support. I'm certainly not, caring for my children. 2 of them are at school. I have one at home, but I'm certainly not kind of doing the school pickup and then writing and then, I work full time and pretty much all of those hours. Not that I don't have to stop and start, because of course children, they get sick and there are
Of course.
various things that I have to do for them, but I'm the secondary parent, as it were, in the way that a lot of dads are.
And I just love that you openly talk about this, because it's something really that, although women, let's face it, in terms of equality, yeah, we've come some way, but there's still so much further to go. And I love that in you talking about that, you're helping to normalise that, like how amazing that you've got this brilliant career where your hubby can do that, and you know what I mean, that you don't have 2 parents working, and it's amazing, and you've worked bloody hard for that. So it's kind of just really beautiful to have the dad at home, have your hubby at home taking care of the kids so you can work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't feel guilty about it.
No.
I refuse to feel guilty about it. I actually feel if the situation was reversed and Christian had a really big job and I was the stay-at-home mum and Christian was the kind of parent that I am now, I would tell people that he's a great supportive husband, and they would say, oh, that's great. He would, I do all the things that a supportive dad would do. Like I go to the sports games and the Christmas concerts and, but in general, I don't know where their uniform is and I haven't packed their lunchbox. So that's fine. I'm like most dads are, and people love those dads. So I refuse to feel, like I'm not enough. I think that we found our roles and our kids are happy, and so that's what works for us.
Oh, look, and bravo to you guys. I think it's brilliant. And it kind of leads the way for other people when they see successful modeling of that, that it does work. And I feel sorry for so many dads because generally, you know, and it's the way that our society is set up, that a lot of fathers tend to be the breadwinner, in which case it's not financially viable for them to be able to take care of their children full time. And they miss out on a lot, I think. I think it's a wonderful kind of, you know, and look, regardless of whether you're a woman or a man, doesn't really matter. If you're the parent who is best suited to stay at home and take care of the kids, I say all the power.
Exactly. Yeah. And some men wouldn't want to do it, and other men do. And I think if you have the option, Christian was desperate to do it, you know, and he loves it and he's good at it. So it works for us, and the kids are happy. So I wish more men would do it because he is a bit of an anomaly now, but you know, this is the revolution. Let's hope that the future is coming and it's male.
And congratulations to him for being a bloody pioneer. I think it's fantastic. So let's talk about
Yeah.
that though, because, you know, your career is so amazing and so successful because you work so bloody hard at it. Obviously, a lot of talent, but also a lot of luck is involved, you know, when you're an
Yeah.
author.
100%.
Yep. So how did it come about? How did you start writing? Because you weren't always an author and you fell into it. Well, when I say you fell into it, you started that path. And did you realize then that this was going to be the big thing for you?
No, no. I mean, you dream of it, of course, because, you know, why would you do it if you weren't dreaming of big things? But no, yes, I worked in human resources and event management in my 20s. When I was 29, I wrote my first book, worst book in the world, but I did it on on maternity leave. Had my son, and I decided I'm going to write a book, and so I Googled how to write a book, and
I
Google
love
was
that.
very helpful.
I love that.
And and I did write a book during nap time, and you know, when my husband was going out and doing other things, my time became writing time, and I finished that book. Took me about a year, 18 months or so, and I tried to find an agent and tried to find a publisher, and it was fairly slow going. Lots of rejections, quite rightly, because it really wasn't a very good book. And I then went back to work, became pregnant again. I was kind of the part-time working, writing, babies. I mean, it just makes my brain hurt to even thinking about it now. Um, I started writing another book, you know, and I eventually that first book was published in German, weirdly, and only in German. And so my very first book to be published, I can't read a word of it because I don't speak German. Um, and and I then wrote two more books, and it was my third book, The Secrets of Midwives, which was the start, I guess, of a career that was successful enough that I could stop doing the day job and start becoming a full-time writer. But I mean, that was the start of it, and obviously it's gone on to build since then. And yeah, what did I dream of? I loved the idea that I could replace the income that I had made as an HR professional and do it as a kind of a real job, and that it would be viable. Um, I definitely did not imagine a situation where I was the primary or the sole breadwinner and that my husband wouldn't have to work. So yeah, it's fair to say that it's gone above and beyond my expectations, and I'm thrilled about that.
Oh, it's bloody brilliant. I love it. And that's the thing, right? Because in daring to try something new, to do something new and to dream, as you say, you know, you've basically crafted an extraordinary career. Such a well-known author, and your books are so beloved. Like, I think that's been incredible, really, when you say to start that career at 29, at 41, you know, you're in the big leagues, girl.
Oh, bless you. I don't know if that's true, but I'm so glad that I get to do it for a career, and I get to keep creating stories and that people want to read them. And that's just an unbelievable thing to me.
It's amazing. And any advice to any of our listeners out there who are thinking, "Oh God, I'd really like to write a book," or I'm too old, or I don't know where to start? Google, apparently, but
Look, I think that Google's the funny answer, but it actually is a more serious answer, because whether or not you Google it, or you go to writers' workshops, or you buy a bunch of books on how to write a novel, or you sign up to, a blog, if you really kind of focus yourself, if this is a real goal that you have, and you apply yourself in the same way that you would to anything, if you were going to run a half marathon or a marathon, if you were going to start a business, if you were going to really work towards anything worthwhile, do it that way. I mean, I say that, of course, there are people who just want to see if they can write a book, and they don't have a goal to become a published writer. It's not a career. It's just to kind of get that off my bucket list thing. I'm not talking to you guys. You guys go, enjoy the love, create the book, take your time. But if you are wanting a career as a writer, there's so much information out there. There's just a wealth of it. And we have this wonderful thing called the internet, where you can find out and find your way that you enjoy consuming that information. And then why couldn't you be successful? Why couldn't you do it too? There's nothing special about me, and that's how I did it. So that's my advice.
I love that. And I was so lucky a few years back, not many, but a few years back, to meet the brilliant author Tom Keneally, and he's so lovely. And he actually said to me, my advice to writers is go and write. Right. And I sort of just stopped and went, oh, that's simple. But then you said it's actually really profound, because a lot of people who want to write don't know where to start. Well, you start by writing.
Yeah. 100%. And I think there's kind of two schools of writing, because I agree with that. And I've heard people say that, just write. That's the answer. There's also this other part, and I think it's for people with slightly different brains, maybe a little bit more like mine, that just write isn't enough. They will then start writing and think, but where is this going? What do I have to do? And for those people, it might be, go get some information. That's where you come into Google. Go read a book on plotting, if that's going to make you feel more safe. Go to a workshop about plotting. Find out more that as much as you can about it, if that's the way your brain goes, and that will give you the security that you're not wasting your time, and that you're writing in the right direction, as it were. But I agree, just write is the place to start, for sure.
I think obviously there's more to it than that, but I do think, what I think what he was trying to say was, if you don't spend any time actually writing, then that's it. You're not a writer if you don't write, right? So right. We just said that a million times.
That's apt.
And I do think, I was reading a while ago, reading a great book by Catherine Devaney, and she, talks about dyslexia and things, and basically said, different people's brains are hardwired so differently. But if you just get ideas sometimes down on paper, but as you say, if it's handier, I remember, I studied writing obviously at uni, and I remember them saying, why are you reinventing the wheel? There's structures out there, right? Your stories, your words, but there's actual structures you can follow, and you go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't take away the magic. I think people can hear words like plotting or structure as if they're dirty words, as if it means that you're writing by numbers or using a formula. And I call bullshit on that, because I think that no matter, everyone that writes any book, including literary fiction, that doesn't kind of follow that same arc or that same structure, at some point, whether you write first and then apply the structure later, or you plot it out or kind of plan it ahead of time and then you do it, there's magic and there's structure in every book. So you just work it out. You put the structure together, and then the magic happens between, that structure, or you do the magic first and then apply that. Either way, if you want to write a publishable book, you have to have both. And don't feel bad about the way that it works for you, because that's the key to art, isn't it? And that give yourself permission to do it your way, I think is my takeaway.
Oh, I love that. You're so amazing. And thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. You are incredible. You are so generous with your time and with your advice. And
A pleasure.
I will put all of the links, obviously, to where people can find your amazing books and where they can follow you as well on your socials and your beautiful website, and they can follow your journey. But before we go, very quickly, you kind of alluded a little bit that I was going to say what's next for you, but you've already alluded a little bit that there's already a book, and the next book's in the works.
There is.
How exciting! Can you give us a hint?
Yeah, well, it's called The Cliff House. We've just agreed on the title, and it will explore family dysfunctionality again. In fact, this one specifically will be about marriage, and which I think it's quite a good time after people have been in lockdown with their spouses and have thought about doing all sorts of nasty things to them, probably. That I really thought it was interesting to look at marriage, and so that will be next year's book, but I probably can't give away too much more about that, but we can talk about it maybe again closer to the time.
Oh, it's very exciting, and I can't wait to have you back in the Confessional when it does launch, because I'm super excited to read it as well. Everybody needs to go out and grab The Younger Wife. It is such a fantastic book, and congratulations to you on yet another amazing book. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so lovely.
Oh, you're wonderful, and we'll hopefully get to chat next year again. Have a wonderful Christmas, Sally.
Thank you, I will. You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.